as in the histories of Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, Kardam Muni, the Pandavas, and the Gopis. Therefore, the Vedic assertions that the absolute truth is beyond the power of the eyes refer to those who have not received transcendental eyes by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, but the Lord's own transcendental senses, which are the source of our limited senses, are confirmed in the Shruti, as in the following statement from the Kena Upanishad 1.4. Yad vachan abhyutitam yena vag abhyutyate tadev brahmatvam vidhi nedam yad idam upasate. Number one, the absolute should be understood to be that which cannot be ascertained by the material power of speech. Speech itself is evinced by that supreme truth. By the statement, yen vag abhyutate, our power of speech is expressed by the absolute truth. It is clearly expressed that the absolute truth has his own transcendental senses, therefore he is called Rishikesha. Sri Narad Muni has stated, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevaram Bhakti Uchate. Our senses cannot approach the absolute truth by their own power, but when engaged in loving devotional service to satisfy the Lord of the senses, our limited senses must become connected with the Lord's unlimited senses, and thus by the Lord's mercy, he can be understood. Read the shloka.
Next sloka.
Text 37. Translation. Originally one, the absolute Brahman, comes to be known as threefold, manifesting itself as the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Brahman further expands its potency, and thus the power to act and the power of consciousness become manifest, along with the false ego which covers the identity of the conditioned living being. Thus, by the expansion of the multipotencies of the Absolute, the demigods, as the embodiment of knowledge, become manifest along with the material senses, their objects, and the results of material activity, namely happiness and distress. In this way, the manifestation of the material world takes place as the subtle cause and as the material effect visible in the appearance of gross material objects. Brahman, which is the source of all subtle and gross manifestations, is simultaneously transcendental to them, being absolute. Purport. In the previous verse, the sage Pipalayan described the absolute Brahman as being beyond the range of material sense perception and mental speculation. At the same time, it was stated, Atma Moolam Arthoktam Ahayate Na Nisheda Siddhi. The negative injunctions of the Vedas indirectly indicate the existence of the absolute truth. This absolute truth can be approached by correct means. Now, in the present verse, it is clearly described that the absolute truth possesses innumerable potencies. Guru Shakti Brahmeva Bhakti. Thus, by the expansion of the absolute truth, the gross and subtle features of the material world become manifest. As stated by Srila Sridhar Swami, Karyam Karanad Bhinnam Na Bhavati. The result is not different from its cause. Therefore, since the Absolute is eternal existence, this material world, being the potency of the Absolute, must also be accepted as real, although the various manifestations of the material world are temporary and thus illusory. The material world should be understood to consist of the bewildering interactions of real elements. The material world is not false in the imaginary sense of the Buddhists and Mayavadis, who state that, in fact, the material world does not exist outside the mind of the observer. The material world, as the potency of the Lord, has real existence, but the living entity becomes bewildered by the temporary manifestations, foolishly taking them to be permanent. Thus, the material world functions as an illusory potency, causing the living entity to forget the spiritual world, wherein life is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Because the material world thus bewilders the conditioned soul, it is called illusory. When a magician performs his tricks on stage, that which the audience apparently sees is an illusion, but the magician actually exists and the hat and rabbit exist, although the appearance of a rabbit coming out of a hat is an illusion. Similarly, when the living entity identifies himself as part and parcel of the material world, thinking, I am American, I am Indian, I am Russian, I am black, I am white. He is bewildered by the magic of the Lord's illusory potency. The conditioned soul must come to understand. I am a pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Now let me stop my useless activities and serve Krishna, since I am part of him. Then he is free from the illusion of Maya. If one artificially tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy by declaring that there is no illusory potency and that this world is false, he merely falls into another illusion created by Maya to keep him in ignorance. Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 7.14, Devi Esha Gunamayi Mam Maya Duratyaya Mam Evriya Prapadyante Maya Mritam Tarantite. Unless one surrenders at the lotus feet of Mayesha, the Lord of the illusory potency, there is no possibility of escaping from illusion. Childishly declaring that there is no illusory potency is useless, since Maya is Duratyaya or insurpassable for the tiny living entity. But Lord Krishna, the omnipotent personality of Godhead, can immediately call off the illusory potency. In this verse, the expansion of the material world from Brahman, the Absolute, is described. Since Brahman is one of the subordinate features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabdate, one who understands this material world to be Brahman is freed from the tendency to exploit the material energy through sense gratification and mental speculation aimed at one's own satisfaction. The question may be raised, since Brahman is stated to be Ekam or one, how does it become manifest in the innumerable varieties of the material world? Therefore, this verse uses the word Purushakti. The Absolute contains multipotencies as stated in the Vedas, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Parasya Shakti Vividava Shruyate. The Absolute Truth is not Shakti or energy, but Shaktiman, the possessor of innumerable potencies. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, one should submissively hear these authorized descriptions of the Absolute Truth. As stated in the previous verse, Yathanalam Archisha Swaha, the insignificant sparks of a fire have no power to illuminate the blazing fire, which is itself the source of illumination. Similarly, the tiny living entity, who is like a spark of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot illuminate the personality of Godhead by his insignificant intellectual power. One may argue that the sun expands its potency in the form of its rays, and it is through the illumination of those rays that we are able to see the sun. In the same way, we should be able to perceive the Absolute Truth by the expansion of its potency. In answer to this, it may be stated that if the sun creates a cloud covering the sky, then despite the presence of sun rays, the sun cannot be seen. Therefore, ultimately, the power to see the sun depends not only on the sun's rays, but on the presence of a clear sky, which is also an arrangement by the sun. Similarly, as stated in this verse, one can understand the existence of the Absolute Truth by the expansion of its potencies. Although in the previous verse the power of the material senses and mind was rejected, the authorized descriptions given here inform us that one can directly perceive everything that exists to be the potency of the personality of Godhead. In this regard, Narad Muni advised King Prachin Bali as follows. Atastan apavadatham bhaja sarvatmana harim pashyam stad atmakam vishvam stiti pratyapyayayatah. You should always know that this cosmic manifestation is created, maintained and annihilated by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, everything within this cosmic manifestation is under the control of the Lord. To be enlightened by this perfect knowledge, one should always engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. Bhagavatam 4.29.79. As stated here, Bhaj Sarvat Mana Harim. One must worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead so that one's consciousness will become clean and pure, just like the clear blue sky in which the potent sun is fully manifest. When one sees the sun, he immediately sees the sun's rays in full potency. Similarly, if one engages in the devotional service of Krishna, one's mind becomes cleansed of material dirt, and thus He can see not only the Lord, but the Lord's expansions as the spiritual world, as the pure devotees, as the Paramatma, as the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and as the subsequent creation of the material world, the shadow of the kingdom of God, Chayeva, in which so many material varieties become manifest. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the word phalam can also be understood to mean Purushartha Swarupam, or the actual form of the goal of life, or in other words, the transcendental form of the Lord Himself. The living entity in his original pure state is not different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, the infinite multicolored opulence of the kingdom of God, called Vaikuntha, is non-different in quality from the Lord. Thus, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is personally present with his unparalleled opulence and his pure spiritual servitors, the living entities, a very happy situation is created. The mundane concept of family is a perverted reflection of the happy situation created when the Lord is united in full spiritual opulence with his pure devotees. Every living entity has the option to join the Lord in his opulent eternal kingdom. Thus, one should understand from this verse that everything within the gross and subtle cosmic manifestations is the potency of the Lord and is therefore meant to be used in the Lord's service. Isha Vashyavidam Sarvam. Srila Jiva Goswami has given an elaborate explanation proving that the entire cosmic situation is the natural potency of the absolute truth. Sometimes
you have for the folio.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Gita Ves.
Take out something on all the things in that. Please don't forget. Finish this. This.
Whereas the glories of Lord Nityananda Balram,
Okay.
Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Okay.
Reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, first chapter. The glories of Lord Nityananda Balram. Let me offer my obeisances to Lord Sri Nityananda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose opulence is wonderful and unlimited. By His will, even a fool can understand His identity. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have described the glory of Sri Krishna Chaitanya in 6 verses. Now, in 5 verses, I shall describe the glory of Lord Nityananda. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Lord Balram is his second body. Purport: Lord Sri Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the primeval Lord, the original form of Godhead, and his first expansion is Sri Balaram. The personality of Godhead can expand himself in innumerable forms. The forms that have unlimited potency are called Swansh, and forms that have limited potencies, the living entities, are called Vibhinansh. These two are one and the same identity. They differ only in form. Lord Balram is the first bodily expansion of Krishna, and he assists in Lord Krishna's transcendental pastimes. But Balram is a Swansh expansion of the Lord, and therefore there is no difference in potency between Krishna and Balram. The only difference is in their bodily structure. As the first expansion of Godhead, Balram is the chief deity among the first quadruple forms, and he is the foremost assistant of Sri Krishna in his transcendental activities. Text 6. That original Lord Krishna appeared in Navadip as Lord Chaitanya, and Balram appeared with him as Lord Nityananda. Text 7. May Sri Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance. Sankarshan, Sheshnag, and the Vishnus who lie on the Karan ocean Garbha ocean and ocean of milk are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. Purport. Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami has recorded this verse in his diary to offer his respectful obeisances to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. This verse also appears as the seventh of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Next state. Lord Balram is the original Sankarshan. He assumes 5 other forms to serve Lord Krishna. Next 9. He himself helps in the pastimes of Lord Krishna and he does the work of creation in 4 other forms. Next 10. He executes the orders of Lord Krishna in the work of creation and in the form of Lord Shesh. He serves Krishna in various ways. Translation. According to expert opinion, Balram, as the chief of the original quadruple forms, is also the original Sankarshan. Balram, the first expansion of Krishna, expands himself in 5 forms: Mahasankarshan, Karanabdikshai, Garbhodakshai, Shirodakshai, and Shesha. These 5 plenary portions are responsible for both the spiritual and material cosmic manifestations. In these 5 forms, Lord Balram assists Lord Krishna in his activities. The first 4 of these forms are responsible for the cosmic manifestations, whereas Shesha is responsible for personal service to the Lord. Shesha is called Ananta or unlimited because he assists the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his unlimited expansions by performing an unlimited variety of services. Sri Balram is the Survivor Godhead who serves Lord Krishna in all affairs of existence and knowledge. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the same Survivor Godhead Balram, performs the same service to Lord Gauranga by constant association. Text 11. In all the forms he tastes the transcendental bliss of serving Krishna. That same Balram is Lord Nityananda, the companion of Lord Gaurasundar. Text 12. I have explained the 7th verse in 3 subsequent verses. By these verses, all the world can know the truth about Lord Nityananda. Text 13. I surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, who is known as Sankarshan in the midst of the Chaturvyu, consisting of Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. He possesses full opulences and resides in Vaikuntha Loka, far beyond the material creation. Purport. This is a verse from Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami's diary. It appears as the 8th of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Text 14. Beyond the material nature lies the realm known as Paravyom, the spiritual sky. Like Lord Krishna himself, it possesses all transcendental attributes such as the 6 opulences. Purport. According to Sankhya philosophy, the material cosmos is composed of 24 elements: the 5 gross material elements, the 3 subtle material elements, the 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the 5 active senses, the 5 objects of sense pleasure, and the Mahatattva, the total material energy. Empiric philosophers, unable to go beyond these elements, speculate that anything beyond them must be avyakta or inexplicable. But the world beyond the 24 elements is not inexplicable, for it is explained in the Bhagavad Gita as the eternal Sanatana nature. Beyond the manifested and unmanifested existence of material nature, Vyakta Avyakta is the Sanatana nature, which is called the Parabrahma or the spiritual sky. Since that nature is spiritual in quality, there are no qualitative differences there. Everything there is spiritual, everything is good, and everything possesses the spiritual form of Sri Krishna himself. That spiritual sky is the manifested internal potency of Sri Krishna. It is distinct from the material sky manifested by his external potency. The all-pervading Brahman, composed of the impersonal glowing rays of Sri Krishna, exists in the spiritual world with the Vaikuntha planets. We can get some idea of that spiritual sky by a comparison to the material sky. For the rays of the sun in the material sky can be compared to the Brahma Jyoti, the glowing rays of the personality of Godhead. In the Brahma Jyoti, there are unlimited Vaikuntha planets which are spiritual and therefore self-luminous, with a glow many times greater than that of the sun. The personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, his innumerable plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions dominate each Vaikuntha planet. In the highest region of the spiritual sky is the planet called Krishna Lok, which has 3 divisions, namely Dwarka, Mathura, and Golok or Gokul. To a gross materialist, this kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, is certainly a mystery. But to an ignorant man, everything is a mystery for want of sufficient knowledge. The kingdom of God is not a myth. Even the material planets which float over our heads in the millions and billions are still a mystery to the ignorant. Material scientists are now attempting to penetrate this mystery, and a day may come when the people of this earth will be able to travel in outer space and see the variegatedness of these millions of planets with their own eyes. In every planet there is as much material variegatedness as we find in our own planet. This planet Earth is but an insignificant spot in the cosmic structure. Yet foolish men, puffed up by a false sense of scientific advancement, have concentrated their energy in the pursuit of so-called economic development on this planet, not knowing of the variegated economic facilities available on other planets. According to modern astronomy, the gravity of the moon is different from that of Earth. Therefore, one who goes to the moon will be able to pick up large weights and jump vast distances. In the Ramayana, Hanuman is described as being able to lift huge weights as heavy as hills and jump over the ocean. Modern astronomy has confirmed that this is indeed possible. The disease of the modern civilized man is his disbelief of everything in the revealed scriptures. Faithless non-believers cannot make progress in spiritual realization, for they cannot understand the spiritual potency. The small fruit of a banyan contains hundreds of seeds, and in each seed is the potency to produce another banyan tree with the potency to produce millions more of such fruits. This law of nature is visible before us, although how it works is beyond our understanding. This is but an insignificant example of the potency of Godhead. There are many similar phenomena that no scientist can explain. Everything, in fact, is inconceivable, for the truth is revealed only to the proper persons. Although there are varieties of personalities, from Brahma down to the insignificant one, all of whom are living beings, their development of knowledge is different. Therefore, we have to gather knowledge from the right source. Indeed, in reality, we can get knowledge only from the Vedic sources. The four Vedas, with their supplementary Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and their corollaries, which are known as Smritis, are all authorized sources of knowledge. If we are at all to gather knowledge, we must gather it from these sources without hesitation. Revealed knowledge may in the beginning be unbelievable because of our paradoxical desire to verify everything with our tiny brains. But the speculative means of attaining knowledge is always imperfect. The perfect knowledge propounded in the revealed scriptures is confirmed by the great acharyas who have left ample commentations upon them. None of these acharya has disbelieved in the Shastras. One who disbelieves in the Shastras is an atheist, and we should not confront an atheist, however great he may be. A staunch believer in the Shastras, with all their diversities, is the right person from whom to gather real knowledge. Such knowledge may seem inconceivable in the beginning, but when put forward by the proper authority, its meaning is revealed, and then one no longer has any doubts about it. Text 15. That Vaikuntha region is all-pervading, infinite and supreme. It is the residence of Lord Krishna and his incarnations. Text 16. In the highest region of that spiritual sky is the spiritual planet called Krishna Loka. It has three divisions, Dwarka, Mathura and Gokul. Text 17. Shri Gokul, the highest of all, is also called Vraja, Goloka, Shweta Dvipa and Vrindavana. Text 18. Like the transcendental body of Lord Krishna, Gokul is all-pervading, infinite and supreme. It expands both above and below without any restriction. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami, the great authority and philosopher in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has discussed the abode of Krishna and his Krishna Sandarbha. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord refers to my abode. Srila Jiva Goswami, examining the nature of Krishna's abode, refers to the Skanda Purana, which states, Ya yatha bhui vartante purvo bhagavata priya tas tatha santi vaikunthe tattal leelartham ardhitam. The abodes of Godhead in the material world, such as Dwarka, Mathura and Gokul, are facsimiles representing the abodes of Godhead in the kingdom of God. Vaikuntha Dham. The unlimited spiritual atmosphere of that Vaikuntha Dham is far above and beyond the material cosmos. This is confirmed in the Swayambhuva Tantra in a discussion between Lord Shiva and Parvati regarding the effect of chanting the mantra of 14 syllables. There it is stated, Nana Kalpalatakirnam Vaikuntham Vyapakam Smaret Adasamyam Gunanam Cha Prakriti Sarva Karanam. While chanting the mantra, one should always remember the spiritual world, which is very extensive and full of desired trees that can yield anything one desires. Below that Vaikuntha region is the potential material energy which causes the material manifestation. The places of the pastimes of Lord Krishna, such as Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan, eternally and independently exist in Krishna Loka. They are the actual abodes of Lord Krishna, and there is no doubt that they are situated above the material cosmic manifestation. The abode known as Vrindavan or Gokul is also known as Goloka. The Brahma Samhita states that Gokul, the highest region of the kingdom of God, resembles a lotus flower with thousands of petals. The outer portion of that lotus-like planet is a square place known as Shvetadvipa. In the inner portion of Gokul, there is an elaborate arrangement for Sri Krishna's residence with his eternal associates such as Nanda and Yashoda. That transcendental abode exists by the energy of Sri Baladev, who is the original whole of Shesha or Ananta. The Tantras also confirm this description by stating that the abode of Sri Anantadev, the primary portion of Baladev, is called the kingdom of God. Vrindavan Dham is the innermost abode within the quadrangular realm of Shvetadvipa, which lies outside of the boundary of Gokul Vrindavan. According to Sri Jiva Goswami, Vaikuntha is also called Brahma Loka. The Narada Pancharatra, in a statement concerning the mystery of Vijaya, describes Tat Sarvopari Goloke Tatra Lokopari Swayam Vyayata Paramarandi Govindo Atula Nayaka. The predominator of the gopis, Govinda, the principal deity of Gokul, always enjoy himself in a place called Gokul, in the topmost part of the spiritual sky. From the authoritative evidence cited by Sri Jiva Goswami, we may conclude that Krishna Lok is the supreme planet in the spiritual sky, which is far beyond the material cosmos. For the enjoyment of transcendental variety, the pastimes of Krishna there have three divisions, and these pastimes are performed in the three abodes, Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokul. When Krishna descends to this universe, he enjoys the pastimes in places of the same name. These places on earth are not different from those original abodes, for they are facsimiles of those original holy places in the transcendental world. They are as good as Sri Krishna himself and are equally worshipable. Lord Chaitanya declared that Lord Krishna, who presents himself as the son of the king of Raja, is worshipable, and that Vrindavan Dham is equally worshipable. Text 19. That abode is manifested within the material world by the will of Lord Krishna. It is identical to that original Gokul. They are not two different bodies. The above mentioned Dhamas are movable by the omnipotent will of Lord Krishna. When Shri Krishna appears on the face of the earth, he can also make his Dhamas appear without changing their original structure. One should not discriminate between the Dhams on the earth and those in the spiritual sky, thinking those on earth to be material and the original abodes to be spiritual. All of them are spiritual. Only for us who cannot experience anything beyond matter in our present conditioned state, do the Dhamas and the Lord himself in his Archa form appear before us resembling matter to give us the facility to see spirit with material eyes. In the beginning, this may be difficult for a neophyte to understand, but in due course, when one is advanced in devotional service, it will be easier and he will appreciate the Lord's presence in these tangible forms. Text 20. The land there is touchstone, Chintamani, and the forest abound with desired trees. Material eyes see it as an ordinary place. Purport. By the grace of the Lord, his Dhamas and he himself can all be present simultaneously without losing their original importance. Only when one fully develops in affection and love of Godhead can one see those Dhamas in their original appearance. Sri Narottam Das Thakur, great Acharya in the preceptorial line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has said for our benefit that one can perfectly see the Dhams only when one completely gives up the mentality of lording it over material nature. One's spiritual vision develops proportionately to one's giving up the debased mentality of unnecessarily enjoying matter. A diseased person who has become diseased because of a certain bad habit must be ready to follow the advice of the physician, and as a natural sequence, he must attempt to give up the cause of the disease. The patient cannot indulge in the bad habit and at the same time expect to be cured by the physician. Modern materialistic civilization, however, is maintaining a diseased atmosphere. The living being is a spiritual spark, as spiritual as the Lord Himself. The only difference is that the Lord is great and the living being is small. Qualitatively, they are one, but quantitatively, they are different. Therefore, since the living being is spiritual in constitution, he can be happy only in the spiritual sky, where there are unlimited spiritual spheres called Vaikunthas. A spiritual being conditioned by a material body must therefore try to get rid of his disease instead of developing the cause of the disease. Foolish persons engrossed in their material assets are unnecessarily proud of being leaders of the people, but they ignore the spiritual value of man. Such illusion leaders make plans covering any number of years, but they can hardly make humanity happy in a state conditioned by the threefold miseries inflicted by material nature. One cannot control the laws of nature by any amount of struggling. One must at last be subject to that nature's ultimate law. Death, birth, old age, and illness are symptoms of the diseased condition of the living being. The highest aim of human life should therefore be to get free from these miseries and go back home, back to Godhead. Text 21. But with the eyes of love of Godhead, one can see its real identity as the place where Lord Krishna performs his pastimes with the cowherd boys and cowherd girls. Text 22. I worship Govinda, the primal Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending cows, yielding all his lands and awards, built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. Text 23. Lord Krishna manifests his own form in Mathura and Dwarka. He enjoys pastimes in various ways by expanding into the quadruple forms. Text 24. Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna and Aniruddha are the primary quadruple forms from whom all the quadruple forms are manifested. They are all purely transcendental. Only in these three places, Dwarka, Mathura and Gokul, does the all-sporting Lord Krishna perform his endless pastimes with his personal associates. Text 26. In the Vaikuntha planets of the spiritual sky, the Lord manifests his identity as Narayana and performs pastimes in various ways. All these pastimes are his only characteristic functions. By his causeless mercy, he performs one activity for the fallen souls. He delivers the fallen living entities by offering them the four kinds of liberation: Salokya, Samipya, Sarashti, and Sarupya. Those who attain Brahma Sayudhya, liberation, cannot gain entrance into Vaikuntha. Their residence is outside the Vaikuntha planets. Text 32. Outside the Vaikuntha planets is the atmosphere of the glowing effulgence, which consists of the supremely bright rays of the body of Lord Krishna. Text 36. Where it has been stated that the Lord's enemies and devotees attain the same destination, this refers to the ultimate oneness of Brahman and Lord Krishna. This may be understood by the example of the sun and the sunshine, in which Brahman is like the sunshine and Krishna himself is like the sun. Text 37. Thus, in the spiritual sky, there are varieties of pastimes within the spiritual energy. Outside the Vaikuntha planets appears the impersonal reflection of light. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha constitute the second quadruple. They are purely transcendental. One variety of the pastimes from the spiritual energy is described as pure goodness, Vishuddha Sattva. It comprises all the abodes of Vaikuntha. The six attributes are all spiritual. Know for certain that they are all manifestations of the occurrence of Sankarshan. Text 45. There is one marginal potency known as the Jiva. Mahasankarshana is the shelter of all Jivas. Sankarshana is the original shelter of the Purusha from whom this world is created and in whom it is dissolved. That Sankarshan, who is transcendental pure goodness, is a partial expansion of Nityananda Balram. I briefly explained the 8th verse. Now please listen with attention as I explain the 9th verse. Text 50. I offer my full obeisances unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, whose partial representation called Karanu Dakshai Vishnu, lying on the Karan ocean, is the original Purusha, the master of the illusory energy, and the shelter of all the universes. Surrounding Vaikuntha is a mass of water that is endless, unfathomed, and unlimited. The earth, water, fire, air, and ether of Vaikuntha are all spiritual. Material elements are not found there. Text 54. The water of the Karan ocean, which is the original cause, is therefore spiritual. The sacred Ganges, which is but a drop of it, purifies the fallen souls. Text 55. In that ocean lies the plenary portion of Lord Sankarsana. Text 56. He is known as the first Purusha, the creator of the total material energy. He, the cause of the universes, the first incarnation, cast his glance over Maya. Therefore, Lord Krishna is the original cause of the cosmic manifestation. Prakriti is like the nipples on the neck of a goat, for they cannot give any milk. Text 62. The Maya aspect of material nature is the immediate cause of the cosmic manifestation, but it cannot be the real cause, for the original cause is Lord Narayana. The first Purusha casts his glance at Maya from a distance, and thus he impregnates her with the seed of life in the form of the living entities. Text 69. Thereafter, when he inhales, all the universes again enter his body. 70. Just as atomic particles of dust pass through the openings of a window, so the networks of universe pass through the pores of the skin of the Purusha. As a part of a whole is called a kala. Shri Balram is the counter form of Lord Govinda. Text 74. Balram's own expansion is called Mahasankarshana, and his fragment, the Purusha, is counted as a kala or a part of a plenary portion. I said that this kala is Mahavishnu. He is the Mahapurusha, who is the source of the other Purushas and who is all pervading. Text 76. Garbhodakshai and Shirodakshai are both called Purushas. They are plenary portions of Karanodakshai Vishnu, the first Purusha, who is the abode of all the universes. Text 55. Although the Lord is the shelter of everything, and although all the universes rest in Him, He is the Super Soul, is also the support of everything. Thus the Bhagavad Gita also states again and again that the Absolute Truth always possesses inconceivable power. Text 91. That Mahapurusha, Karanodakshai Vishnu, is known as a plenary part of Him who is Lord Nityananda Balram, the favorite associate of Lord Chaitanya. I have thus explained the 9th verse, and now I shall explain the 10th. Please listen with rapt attention. After creating millions of universes, the first Purusha entered into each of them in a separate form as Sri Garbhodakshai. Text 99. There he manifested Vaikuntha as his own abode and rested in the waters on the bed of Lord Shesh. Text 100. He lay there with Anant as his bed. Lord Anant is a divine serpent having thousands of heads, thousands of faces, thousands of eyes, and thousands of hands and feet. He is the seed of all incarnation and is the cause of the material world. Text 102. From his navel grew a lotus flower which became the birthplace of Lord Brahma. 103. Within the stem of that lotus were the 14 worlds. Thus the Supreme Lord as Brahma created the entire creation. As Lord Vishnu, he maintains the entire world. Lord Vishnu, being beyond all material attributes, has no touch with the material qualities. Text 105. Assuming the form of Rudra, he destroys the creation. Thus, creation, maintenance, and dissolution are created by his will. The Lord Narayan is a part of a plenary part of Lord Nityananda Balram, who is the source of all incarnations. Text 108. I have then explained the 10th verse. Now please listen to the meaning of the 11th verse with all your mind. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the feet of Sri Nityananda Ram, whose secondary part is the Vishnu lying in the ocean of will. That Shrodakshay Vishnu is the supersoul of all living entities and the maintainer of all universes. Shesh Nag is further subpart. Text 113. In the ages and millenniums of Manu, he appears as different incarnations to establish the principles of real religion and vanquish the principles of irreligion. Text 114. Unable to see him, the demigods go to the shore of the ocean of will and offer prayers to him. He then descends to maintain the material world. His unlimited opulences cannot be counted. Text 116. That Lord Vishnu is but a part of a plenary portion of Lord Nityananda, who is the source of all incarnation. But the Lord of Shukadeva has immense potency for creation and destruction. Sri Nityananda Prabhu, being Baldev himself, the original form of Sankarsana, is the original form of the Lord of Shukadeva. Text 117. That same Lord Vishnu, in the form of Lord Shesha, holds the planets upon his heads, although he does not know where they are, for he cannot feel their existence upon his heads. Text 118. His thousands of extended hoods are adorned with dazzling jewels surpassing the sun. With his thousands of bounds, he sings the glories of Lord Krishna, but although he always sings in that way, he does not find an end to the qualities of the Lord. Text 122. The four Kumaras hear Srimad Bhagavatam from his lips, and they in turn repeat it in the transcendental bliss of love of Godhead. Text 123. He serves Lord Krishna, assuming all the following forms: umbrella, slippers, bedding, pillow, garment, resting chair, residence, sacred thread, and throne. Text 124. He is thus called Lord Shesh, for he has attained the ultimate end of servitude to Krishna. He takes many forms for the service of Krishna, and thus he serves the Lord. Text 125. That person of whom Lord Anant is a Kala, or part of a plenary part, is Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who therefore can know the pastimes of Lord Nityananda. So from these conclusions, we can know the limit of the truth of Lord Nityananda. But what glory is there in calling him Ananta? Text 127. But I accept it as the truth because it has been said by devotees. Since he is the source of all incarnations, everything is possible in him. Text 128. They know that there is no difference between the incarnation and the source of all incarnations. Previously, Lord Krishna was regarded in the light of different principles by different people. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna appears, he is the shelter of all the lyric parts. Thus, at that time, of all his plenary portions joined in him. Text 133. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has exhibited to everyone all the pastimes of all the various incarnations. Text 134. Thus, Lord Nityananda has unlimited incarnations. In transcendental emotion, he calls himself a servant of Lord Chaitanya. Text 135. Sometimes he serves Lord Chaitanya as his guru, sometimes as his friend, and sometimes as his servant, just as Lord Balaram played with Lord Krishna in these three different moods in Vraja. Text 136. Playing like a bull, Lord Balaram fights with Krishna head to head, and sometimes Lord Krishna massages the feet of Lord Balaram. Text 137. He considers himself a servant and knows Krishna to be his master. Thus he regards himself as a fragment of his plenary portion. Text 138. Acting just like ordinary boys, they played like roaring bulls as they fought each other, and they imitated the calls of various animals. This and the following quotation are from the Bhagavatam 10:11:40 and 10:15:14. Sometimes when Lord Krishna's elder brother Lord Balaram felt tired after playing and lay his head on the lap of a coward boy, Lord Krishna himself served him by massaging his feet. Text 140. Who is this mystic power? And where has she come from? Is she a demigod or a demoness? She must be the living energy of my master, Lord Krishna, for who else can bewilder me? What is the value of a throne to Lord Krishna? The masters of the various planetary systems accept the dust of his lotus feet on their crowned heads. That dust makes the holy places sacred, and even Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Lakshmi, and I myself, who are all portions of his plenary portion, eternally carry that dust on our heads. Text 143. Thus Lord Chaitanya is also the only controller. All others are his associates or servants. Text 144, 145. His elders, such as Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, and Srivas Thakur, as well as his other devotees, whether his juniors, equals, or superiors, are all his associates who help him in his pastimes. Lord Garanga fulfills his aims with their help. Text 146. Sri Advaita Acharya and Sri Nityanand Prabhu, who are plenary parts of the Lord, are his principal associates. With these two, the Lord performs his pastimes in various ways. Text 147. Lord Advaita Acharya is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Lord Chaitanya accepts him as his preceptor, Advaita Acharya is a servant of the Lord. Text 148. I cannot describe the truth of Advaita Acharya. He has delivered the entire world by making Lord Krishna descend. Text 149. Lord Nityananda Swarup formerly appeared as Lakshmana and served Lord Ramchandra as his younger brother. Text 150. The activities of Lord Ram were full of suffering, but Lakshmana, of his own accord, tolerated that suffering. As a younger brother, he could not stop Lord Ram from his evolution, and so he remained silent, although unhappy in his mind. Text 152. When Lord Krishna appeared, he, Balram, became his elder brother to serve him to his heart's content and make him enjoy all sorts of happiness. Text 156. Lord Chaitanya is the same Lord Krishna, and Lord Nityanand is Lord Balram. Lord Nityanand fulfills all of Lord Chaitanya's desires. The ocean of Lord Nityanand's glory is infinite and unfathomable. Only by his mercy can I touch even a drop of it. Text 158. Please listen to another glory of his mercy. He made a fallen living entity climb to the highest limit. Text 160. O Lord Nityananda, I write of your mercy out of great exultation. Please forgive me for my offences. Lord Nityananda Prabhu had a servant named Sri Meenaketan Ramadas, who was a reservoir of love. Text 162. At my house there was Sankirtan day and night, and therefore he visited there, having been invited. Absorbed in emotional love, he sat in my courtyard, and all the Vaishnavas bowed down at his feet. In a joyful mood of love of God, he sometimes climbed upon the shoulder of someone offering obeisances, and sometimes he struck others with his flute and mildly slapped them. When someone saw the eyes of Meenaketan Ramadas, tears would automatically flow from his own eyes, and a constant shower of tears flowed from his eyes of Meenaketan Ramadas. Sometimes there were eruptions of ecstasy like kadamba flowers on some parts of his body, and sometimes one limb would be stunned while another would be trembling. Text 167. Whenever he shouted out the name of Lord Nityananda, the people around him were filled with great wonder and astonishment. One respectable Brahmana named Sri Munanava Mishra was serving the deity. When Meenaketan was seated in the yard, this Brahmana did not offer him respect. Seeing this, Sri Ramadas became angry and spoke. Here I find the second Romaharshana Sutta, who did not stand to show honor when he saw Lord Balram. After saying this, he danced and sang to his heart's content, but the Brahmana did not become angry, for he was then serving Lord Krishna. Purport. Meenaketan Ramadas was a great devotee of Lord Nityananda. When he entered the house of Krishna Das Kaviraj, Munanava Mishra, the priest who was worshipping the deity installed in the house, did not receive him very well. A similar event occurred when Bhuma Sita was speaking to the great assembly of sages at Naimisharanya. Lord Baladev entered that great assembly, but since Brahmanshana Sutta was on the Vyasasana, he did not get down to offer respect to Lord Baladev. The behavior of Gunanama Mishra indicated that he had no great respect for Lord Nityananda, and this idea was not at all palatable to Veenketan Ramadas. For this reason, the mentality of Veenketan Ramadas is never deprecated by devotees. Puja, text 172. At the end of the festival, Veenketan Ramadas went away, offering his blessings to everyone. At that time, he had some controversy with my brother. Text 173. My brother had firm faith in Lord Chaitanya, but only a dim glimmer of faith in Lord Nityananda. Text 174. Knowing this, Sri Ramadas felt unhappy in his mind. I then rebuked my brother. These two brothers, I told him, are like one body. They are identical manifestations. If you do not believe in Lord Nityananda, you will fall down. If you have faith in one but disrespect the other, your logic is like the logic of accepting half a hen. It would be better to be an atheist by slighting both brothers than a hypocrite by believing in one and slighting the other. Thus Sri Ramadas broke his flute in anger and went away, and at that time my brother fell down. I have thus described the power of the servants of Lord Nityananda. Now I shall describe another characteristic of his mercy. Text 23. That night, Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream because of my good quality in chastising my brother. In the village of Jhamadpura, which is near Naihati, Lord Nityananda appeared to me in a dream. Purport. There is now a railway line to Jhamadpura. If one wants to go there, you can take a train on the Katwa railway line and go directly to the station known as Salaram. From that station, one can go directly to Jhamadpura. Text 182. I fell at his feet offering my obeisances, and he then placed his own lotus feet upon my head. Arise, get up, he told me again and again. Upon rising, I was greatly astonished to see his beauty. He had a glossy blackish complexion, and his tall, strong, heroic stature made him seem like Cupid himself. He had beautifully formed hands, arms, and legs, and eyes like lotus flowers. He wore a silk cloak with a silk turban on his head. His body was anointed with sandalwood oil, and he was nicely decorated with tilak. His movements surpassed those of a maddened elephant. His body moved to and fro, right and left, for he was absorbed in ecstasy. He chanted Krishna, Krishna in a deep voice, his red stick moving in his hand. He seemed like a maddened lion. All around the four sides of his feet were bumblebees. His devotees, dressed like cowherd boys, surrounded his feet like so many bees and also chanted Krishna, Krishna, absorbed in ecstatic love. Some of them played horns and flutes, and others danced and sang. Some of them offered betel nuts, and others waved chamber fans about him. Thus I saw such opulence in Lord Nityananda's Swarupa. His wonderful form, qualities, and pastimes are all transcendental. Text 194. I was overwhelmed with transcendental ecstasy, not knowing anything else. Then Lord Nityananda smiled and spoke to me as follows. Oh my dear Krishnadas, do not be afraid. Go to Vrindavan, for there you will attain all things. After saying this, he directed me toward Vrindavan by waving his hand. Then he disappeared with his associates. I fainted and fell to the ground. My dream broke, and when I regained consciousness, I saw that morning had come. I thought about what I had seen and heard and concluded that the Lord had ordered me to proceed to Vrindavan at once. That very second I started for Vrindavan, and by His mercy I reached there in great happiness. All glory to Lord Nityananda Balram, by whose mercy I have attained shelter in the transcendental abode of Vrindavan. Text 201. All glory to the merciful Lord Nityananda, By whose mercy I have attained shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Sanatana. By his mercy I have attained the shelter of the great personality Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, and by his mercy I have found the refuge of Sri Swarupa Damodar. By the mercy of Sanatana Goswami, I have learned the final conclusions of devotional service, and by the grace of Sri Rupa Goswami, I have tasted the highest nectar of devotional service. All glory to the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, by whose mercy I have attained Sri Radha Govinda. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, who is famous for his poetic composition known as Prarthana, has lamented in one of his prayers, when will Lord Nityananda be merciful upon me, so that I will forget all material desires? Srila Narottam Das Thakur confirms that unless one is freed from material desires to satisfy the needs of the body and senses, one cannot understand the transcendental abode of Lord Krishna, Vrindavan. He also confirms that one cannot understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna without going through the direction of the six Goswamis. In another verse, Narottam Das Thakur has stated that without the causeless mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, one cannot enter into the affairs of Radha and Krishna. Text 205. I am more sinful than Jagai and Madhai, and even lower than the worms in the stool. Anyone who hears my name loses the results of his pious activities. Anyone who utters my name becomes sinful. Who in this world but Nityanand would show his mercy to such an abominable person as me? Text 208. Because he is intoxicated by ecstatic love and is an incarnation of mercy, he does not distinguish between the good and the bad. He delivers all those who fall down before him. Therefore, he has delivered such a sinful and fallen person as me. Although I am sinful and I am most fallen, he has conferred upon me the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Goswami. I am not fit to speak all these confidential words about my visiting Lord Madan Gopal and Lord Govinda. Lord Madan Gopal, the chief deity of Vrindavan, is the enjoyer of the Rasa dance and is directly the son of the king of Raja. He enjoys the Rasa dance with Srimati Radharani, Sri Lalita and others. He manifests himself as the cupid of cupids. The mercy of Lord Nityananda showed me Sri Madan Mohan and gave me Sri Madan Mohan as my Lord and Master. He granted to one as low as me the sight of Lord Govinda. Words cannot describe this, nor is it fit to be disclosed. Lord Brahma, sitting on his lotus seat in his own abode, always meditates on him and worships him with the mantra consisting of 18 slogans. Everyone in the 14 worlds meditates upon him, and all the denizens of Vaikuntha sing of his qualities and pastimes. Without a doubt, he is directly the son of the king of Raj. Only a fool considers him a statue. For that offense, he cannot be liberated. Rather, he will fall into a terrible hellish condition. What more should I say? Therefore, who can describe the mercy of the lotus feet of him, Lord Nityananda, by whom I have attained the shelter of this Lord Govinda? Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are the life and soul of those Vaishnavas who do not know anything but devotional service to Sri Radha Krishna. Lord Nityananda said, in Vrindavan all things are possible. Here I have explained his brief statement in detail. I have attained all this by coming to Vrindavan, and this was made possible by the mercy of Lord Nityananda. I have described my own story without reservations. The attributes of Lord Nityananda, making me like a madman, forced me to write these things. The glories of Lord Nityananda's transcendental attributes are unfathomable. Even Lord Shesha, with his thousands of mouths, cannot find their limit.
गोस्वामी श्री नाभाजी महाराज, गोस्वामी श्री तुलसीदास जी महाराज के पवित्र चरित्र का हमने स्मरण किया। आज वर्तमान ग्रंथ में एक ऐसी अनुपम भक्ता के चरित्र का स्मरण किया जा रहा है जो केवल राजस्थान में प्रदेश प्रसिद्ध नहीं, हिंदी भाषी क्षेत्रों में प्रसिद्ध नहीं, परम पूज्य श्री प्रभुदत्त ब्रह्मचारी जी ने लिखा है कि मीरा जी के चरित्र के ऊपर जब हमने लेखनी उठाई तो उसके पहले मैंने पूरे देश में घूमकर यह अनुभव किया कि मीरा को कौन कौन जानता है। तो उन्होंने कहा कि तमिल, तेलुगु, कन्नड़, मलयालम, उड़िया, उड़ीसा, बंगाल, आसाम, ये जो अहिंदी भाषी क्षेत्र है, इन अहिंदी भाषी क्षेत्रों में भी वहाँ की ग्राम्य भाषा में मीरा जी का चरित्र हमने सुनने को मिला। उन्होंने लिखा है अपने मतवारी मीरा उन्होंने लिखा है मीरा जी का चरित्र, प्रभुदत्त ब्रह्मचारी जी ने लिखा है मतवारी मीरा, बहुत सुंदर लिखा है। वर्तमान में श्री सौभाग्य कुंवर राणावत ने तो जो लिखा है तो क्या कहना, अपने आप में बड़ा अद्भुत है, बहुत सुंदर लिखा है। तो मतवारी मीरा में उन्होंने लिखा है श्री प्रभुदत्त ब्रह्मचारी जी महाराज ने कि मीरा के चरित्र के संबंध में हमें यह अनुभूति हुई कि भारतवर्ष के जिन प्रांतों में हिंदी नहीं बोली जाती है उन प्रांतों में वहाँ की भाषा में भी भक्ति गीतों में लोग मीरा का स्मरण करते हैं। जैसा प्यारा जी ने भेजा, ये सब चरित्रों का स्मरण उन अहिंदी भाषी क्षेत्रों में भी वहाँ की भाषाओं में किया जाता है। मीरा इतनी प्रसिद्ध वक्ता हुई और अहिंदी भाषी ही नहीं, वर्तमान समय में तो समग्र विश्व में जहाँ कहीं भारतीय संस्कृति को जानने समझने वाले लोग जहाँ तक हैं, वहाँ तक लोग मीरा जी को जानते हैं। पुरुष भक्तों में तुलसीदास जी ने, कबीरदास जी, सूरदास जी, मीराबाई, रैदास जी, इनने बहुत प्रसिद्धि प्राप्त की। नारी भक्ताओं में सबसे अधिक प्रसिद्धि मीराबाई ने प्राप्त की। भक्तराज नरसिंह मेहता ने भी बहुत अधिक प्रसिद्धि प्राप्त की। मीरा जी का आविर्भाव कलयुग के मलिन जीवों को यह अपनी वाणी के माध्यम से, अपने चरित्र के माध्यम से समझाने के लिए हुआ कि गोपी प्रेम का स्वरूप क्या है, गोपियों का प्रेम किस प्रकार का था, कलिमल ग्रसित जीव कैसे गोपी प्रेम का आस्वादन करें। उस गोपी प्रेम का आस्वादन करके दिखाया भक्तिमती मीरा ने इस गान कविता में। भक्ति का पथ, प्रेम का पथ, भगवत प्राप्ति का पथ कायरों का मार्ग नहीं है, शूरवीरों का मार्ग, कायरों का मार्ग नहीं है। भगवान वेद भी यही कह रहे हैं, नायमात्मा बलहीनेन लभ्यः। आज सबके अंतर्यामी आत्मा भगवान वह बलहीनों के द्वारा प्राप्त नहीं है। सब प्रकार का बल होना चाहिए। आत्मबल होना चाहिए, ज्ञान वैराग्य भक्ति का बल होना चाहिए, शरणागति का बल होना चाहिए, समर्पण का बल होना चाहिए। ये सब बल है। भगवान की भक्ति कायर लोग नहीं कर सकते। जो हरि है तो, जो हरि है तो कहा दरबारी, करिए भगति निशान बजाई। जब भगवान भक्तों के रक्षक हैं, यह बात सत्य है, तो डरने की क्या आवश्यकता है। करिए भगति निशान बजाई, डंके की चोट पर भगवान की भक्ति का आचरण करना चाहिए। लोक में ऐसा देखा जाता है, संसार में किसी का किसी से प्रेम हो जाता है, यद्यपि संसार में प्रेम कहीं है ही नहीं, स्वार्थ पूर्ति का व्यवहार मात्र है, वासना पूर्ति का व्यवहार मात्र है। किंतु अज्ञानी विषयी मोहग्रस्त प्राणी उसे ही प्रेम मान लेते हैं, और वह वैषयिक निंद्य लौकिक प्रेम भी जिनके भीतर हो जाता है, उनको डर नहीं रहता है, भय नहीं रहता, भय रहता है। लोक में किसी का किसी से प्रेम हो जाता है, डर होता है उनको। अनंतदास जी के शब्दों में बम्बई वाले शास्त्र का उदाहरण तो नहीं दे सकते। एक हमारे महात्मा है श्री अनंतदास जी महाराज, तो कहते हमारे बम्बई वाले शास्त्र में लिखा है। बम्बई वाला शास्त्र क्या है, तो कोई फिल्मी जगत की कोई एक पंक्ति गुनगुना देते हैं, कहते हैं कि ये बम्बई वाला शास्त्र है। तो आप लोग तो बम्बई वाले हैं, हमारा उस शास्त्र से परिचय भी नहीं है और परिचय करने की आवश्यकता भी नहीं है। क्योंकि सूरदास जी, कबीरदास जी, तुलसीदास जी, मीराबाई ऐसे महान संतों की वाणियां जब हमारे पास हैं, तो हम उन लौकिक कवियों के द्वारा लिखे हुए लौकिक प्राकृत नायक नायिकाओं का चिंतन करके लिखे हुए, और कई बार तो कुछ खा उद्देश्य है कि लोक में यह देखा जाता है कि किसी का किसी से